Welcome to the BG Perform podcast, influencing the highest standard of coaching, one episode at a time.
This is the show for coaches, athletes, and high performers who demand more from their training, their clients, and themselves.
Whether you're coaching elite competitors or everyday people, you'll get raw insights that raise the bar so you can influence the highest standard of coaching in your world. DM myself at BGPerform_ and at Coach Jerry Hayes to work together or learn from the best. This show is part of the Coach RX Podcast Network, a collection of shows designed to elevate the coaching conversation. Find the link in the description below. Now sit back and enjoy our new episode.
Good.
I always forget that this timer starts. Welcome back. Wait, you know what it is. You know who it is.
The whole intro was messed up.
We were just talking about the intro, and then I messed up the intro. But you know what it is. You know who it is. We are back with another episode of the BG Perform podcast, episode 4. Today, we're talking about how we build buy-in with clients, which I think is probably one of the most important, if not the most important aspect of training, because I think we can both agree that training in general, and this is a conversation I've actually been having a decent amount with some people, is especially in the Coach Connect, which is people want results, right? But the most important thing to getting results is obviously buying into the program and 100% buying in. And what that means is that you trust the person in front of you, you trust their information, the way they are as a person, you trust that they have the best interests in mind for you, and they're leading you in the right direction. And I think that without having 100% buy-in from the people that you train, they're not going to do everything that they need to do on a daily basis, right? And I think that you and I can both agree on this, is that no matter what program we do, the most important thing is consistency, right? And I think that if we can consistently do something, that's better than half-assing another thing, right? Mm-hmm. And what I want to do today is I want to dive into, how do we create buy-in from clients? How do we get people to be involved in what it is that we do on a level that's so deep that they actually want to follow every single step? And what are kind of the ideas that we have as coaches that we've seen work and not work with, people buying into what it is that we do as coaches, right? And I'm someone who obviously, if you guys listen to the podcast, you know my background, but buy-in is so important at the highest level, because people at that level don't just work with anybody, right? And I should say most people at that level. There are some people who will just work with anybody, but for the most part, you have to know somebody who knows somebody, or you have to be so undeniably good that they know you're going to be good for them. And then you have to even nurture the relationship past that point, right? So it's not just, oh, you're good. It's, oh, you're good and we vibe together. Oh, you're good and you're cool to hang around. Oh, you're good and you provide me with what I need. So it's at the highest level, because there's so much at stake. It's not just, hey, I'm good at what I do. It's, hey, you're good at what you do, but do I trust you? Because I think if we actually look at most coaches nowadays, I think everybody has the tools and the information. If they don't have the information, it's at least at their disposal, right? They can go get it whenever they want to. It's really just about who uses the information properly and who uses it really the most efficiently, right?
It's also who doesn't twist the information.
Yeah.
Coaches who just twist it to fit their own agenda and whatever they're trying to push in the industry for their own business. Coaches who do that and don't. It's the integrity of it.
Yeah,
having a coach who does what they're supposed to do, but also has your best interest in mind, and that's their number one priority.
Yeah, and I think it's really important that we understand as coaches we're all going to make mistakes, And I think that we're not obviously all perfect. And I think if we actually look at every single coach, even the ones who we look up to, there's probably some stuff that either behind the scenes or even when you're watching them, they probably don't do 100% correct, or they're not 100%, always at that level, right? Because we're human. We have bad days, we have bad weeks, months, whatever. But I think that this is so important to understand because we need to build buy-in like from the beginning, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it can't be something we hold off. Like it has to be from the beginning of the very first time you meet somebody, right? And one of the ways, like, and like I said, what I want to do today is kind of dive into some of these topics that me and Jerry have kind of put together. But I think we can go back and forth on this and kind of really have like some dialogue back and forth because,
Mm-hmm.
you know, Jerry's in a position now too where he's managing a facility, right? And that's an even different buy-in, right? Because I think sometimes with a trainer, it's like, hey, we're going to be working together. We're going to be, here, and you can still nurture that connection like through the training. And I think sometimes like managing is even harder because you're either handing them off to somebody else or
Mm-hmm.
you're basically getting them involved inside of the space and then kind of maybe not seeing them as much as you normally would and hoping that what you're selling is maintaining, right? And
It
it's
lives
kind of
up
like,
to what you told
yeah,
them they're gonna get. Yeah.
exactly. And sometimes it's just not on you and it's not 100% your fault, but it's just how it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think the first thing I want to talk about, or actually, is there anything you want to add to that? Any of that?
No, that was good. Yeah, I'm ready
Cool.
to dive
So
in.
I think the first thing that we want to talk about in, you know, I guess building buy-in from a client is environments for success. I think when we talk about getting buy-in for somebody, we have to give them an environment where they feel they can succeed, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't always mean it has to be some fancy place or fancy equipment or fancy whatever. It just has to be, I think, more about the vibe of the place, right? Like if you walk in and everyone's smiling and everyone's happy and everyone's, or even if it's just you, right? Someone walks in and you're smiling, you're standing up, you're giving good energy, you're inviting them in, like that's right away going to allow them to relax and feel
Mm-hmm.
better, right? And not that fake, happiness that like my business partner used to be. That was the worst. But like real happiness, like real genuine interest in like who's in front of you and wanting to learn about the
Mm-hmm.
person coming through, like that shows, right? And I think even on the opposite end, like I just said, I think if you have fake happiness, that shines through even more than like real happiness, right?
Yeah.
I think we've both had those moments where you find somebody who's like so fake happy that you're like, are you okay?
You need help, bro. I
And like,
see. I see what's going on behind the curtain, Mister Oz. What are you
yeah,
doing back there?
and you can see it. I think it's really important. Like you can see it when somebody's not actually like happy. Like I don't know how to
I
describe
just
it.
had this conversation today, and there's like difference between like happy and fake happy, and I think that like I was talking to somebody and they were like, yeah, it's the whole Disney mindset. Like we were taught from a young age that there's a smile that these villains have, where
You're
it's
right.
not genuine,
You're
and
right.
you're like when people have that smile, you see it and you're like, dude, this is like a wolf in sheep's clothing. This is
Speaking of
not
which, I
good.
know not to go off topic, but I was walking today after the workout with Nick, and
You saw a wolf wearing a sheep. Me too.
we were talking about Fairly Odd Parents characters and how weird the Crimson Chin was as a superhero. And I was
Yeah,
just
so
thinking of
strange.
Mr. Crocker when he used to always smile before he's like fairies, and,
Fairies.
and they had Jorgen von Strangle, the jacked
Yeah,
like
Arnold.
yeah the Arnold fairy, but
Von Strangle is a wild last name.
it really is, it really is. Um,
Jorgen.
but yeah, so I think building an environment for success it starts at like literally when someone walks in the door, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's not, again, it's not just a one-time thing. The first time you meet somebody when you're trying to sell them, it's probably simple, right? It's like, hey, I want to make money, or I want to sign this person up, and that's it. And you're having that energy, and you invite them in. You're 100%. I feel like clients, if you're a client or a consumer of fitness, you've seen it before, where you go into a room, you get that coach. They're all like, they have the energy. They're like putting you in a position where you feel safe. And then it's like a week later, you're like, this isn't the same guy that I talked to, right? This isn't the
Mm-hmm.
same guy who sold me. There's no energy here. It's whatever. And I think that the environment for success starts when you walk in the door, and then you have to maintain that, right? So what I would say is obviously like one of the really important things is to be yourself in that situation. If you're not a high energy person, you don't always have to bring the high energy, right? If you're a lower energy person, maybe you do want to bring it up just a bit, but it's more about the feelings you give somebody when they walk in the door, that they know they're safe and that they can talk to you and let their guard down. Because realistically, like I said, you're going to be spending a lot of time, especially in personal training or like group training, you're spending a lot of time, maybe 3 to 5 hours a week with the person you're going to be there with. So it's like, and you're talking to them consistently, communicating with them. So you want it to be someone who you enjoy being around at the end of the day, right? You want results, but you also want it to be someone who's like, hey, I could have a conversation with this person for an hour and not want to, end it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just
Just be
like,
just be genuine.
yeah, that's it. And I think that like if you can build an environment for success where someone comes in and they feel that right away and they're not questioning it
Hmm.
or questioning the what's the word I'm looking for? Like the realness of it. What's the
Genuine. There's a
genuine?
train coming, so let me just mute myself quick.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna.
So the genuineness of it,
And
like
I'm
that's the
back.
most important thing. So, I think anything to add to that?
Uh, no, we pretty much nailed it. Like, just if you are being your genuine self and you have the integrity to actually want to help people, then like, it's gonna be super easy to have people buy in because they don't. There's nothing to see through. They're not trying to peek behind the curtain. You're just being open, and
Yeah.
you're looking to actually help people. So.
Yeah. And I think this leads into the next one because I think if you build an environment for success, like you're going to by default build in vulnerability, right? And I
Hmm.
think one of the biggest things, especially early on in programming or early on in building this buy-in, is allowing someone to be able to talk to you in a way that they, again, feel safe. They're willing to kind of like go a little bit deeper, right? We're not therapists. We're not someone who's, trying to solve life's problems, right? But we want to help you get fitter and get into shape. And I think like if you set up the first part, which is the environment, in the right way, the person you're talking to on the other end is going to be more vulnerable, right? They're going to trust you. They're going to allow you into maybe some of the things that they actually are struggling with so we can actually help them with that stuff, right?
Hmm.
I think what happens sometimes is that trainers, and people in general, but trainers have these conversations with people and they get very, maybe it's not intentionally judgmental, but they get very judgmental early on, right? Instead of just asking the right questions and setting things up so down the line you can get the answers that you want, they're very much like, this is the answer, this is the way, this is how you do it, this, that, and the third, whatever. And you need that at some point because people need to be told what to do. But early on, you really need to allow the person in front of you to give you what they need, right? And if you
Hmm.
set that up for success, people are going to come in, they're going to have conversation with you, and they're going to tell you exactly what they need. And that's it. And then right there, you build a program around that. They're going to tell you what their priorities are. They're going to tell you what they enjoy and what they don't enjoy. They're going to tell you the things that they look forward to and the things that they, when they see, they're like, all right, this day is going to be terrible, right? And it doesn't mean the workouts just in general. They might have kids, they might have dogs, they might have a job that sucks, they like whatever it might be. But that's the time we need to find it. We need to find out what it is, and they're not going to be willing or able to fully kind of give us that information if they don't feel safe.
Hmm.
Anything to add?
That indirectly builds discipline and autonomy too, because like when you ask them like, all right, how did that set feel? What do we think about going up in weight? What are you thinking about the weight right now? Do you want to stay or go up? And then like even like I've had people say like I think I want to stay, and I'm like I think we should go up. And then like I try and like show them why. And then the next time I ask that question, I'm like, do you think we should stay or go up? They're like, maybe go up. What do you think?
Yeah.
And I'll be like, yeah, that looked good. So like you're starting to build that autonomy right there. But also the when you were saying that like people show up and they might not like a certain exercise, but they're like, oh, I got to do it. That's getting the discipline in, and that's one of the best ways you could help them from the beginning because you're giving them the tools that they need to make the decision to be like, all right, I'm doing this even though I don't want to. And then also, how did it feel? Do I feel like I could give it more, or do I feel like that was kind of a half-ass set? And then from there, they can start to build. And those two things it'll change their results in the future entirely because
Yeah, I
now
think
they're in control of like their outcome. It's not
yeah,
just you.
I think with the movements that you said, right? Like when someone doesn't like a movement, it's not so much like, hey, suck it up, right? But it's
Yeah.
also like, hey, listen, like there are things we need to do and there's things that I know you want to do, right? And
Hmm.
and I think us as coaches, this is another way that we can talk about in a second, but it's like you got to give them about, you know, 80% of what they, need, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there you can throw in the stuff that they love as well,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that can be whatever percentage you see fit. Like I said in the beginning, it doesn't really, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter so much what you're doing as long as you're doing it consistently. Obviously, if you want to have the best, most efficient and effective results, there is a ideal way. But if we're just trying to get someone to move and just trying to get someone to be better, then whatever helps them get up in the morning and do it is the
Mm-hmm.
most important thing, right?
Yeah.
And I think that, again, this comes back to the vulnerability. We have to build an environment that allows success, and then that success breeds vulnerability. And with vulnerability, we can actually, be what I guess would be like the next. I guess there's two topics that we can kind of switch into here, but we'll go into the communication, right? It's like
Mm-hmm.
with the vulnerability, right? You can't get that vulnerability and then just do nothing with it, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
you can't receive that vulnerability and then not give, I don't want to say give vulnerability back because it's not so much like this, you know, like, oh, I need to be vulnerable because they were vulnerable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you're helping them be vulnerable so you can help them on their journey to get the things that they want to get done, right? But you also can be relatable, right? Like, and I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the things too that's really hard in coaching is sometimes, because of the lives we live, where most of us don't like to drink, most of us don't have those 9 to 5s, we don't have those same struggles, and maybe we do, but in different ways, and that's why it's up
Mm-hmm.
to us to kind of like translate it. But I think we can become relatable in a lot of ways, and show that to the person, right? Yeah, maybe we are in shape, but we didn't just wake up this way, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we have our struggles too. We know we're doing what we're doing because, well, at least you and I and the people that are around my circle fitness wise, we're doing what we do because we love it, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're not doing it for any other reason. Like I mean, like obviously I want to grow the business, but I think there's a lot more reasons that I shouldn't be doing this than are that I should be doing this,
Yeah.
right? As a career. And I think that what I do is I love it so much that it just I don't even think about that stuff. But I think it's like the communication matters once you get that to then translate that into success for the client, right? And that's
Mm-hmm.
why I said there's two, because one of the other things that kind of goes hand in hand is coaching for results. And that's where like communication and coaching for results, they're kind of this almost the same thing. And I think that with that being said, like, you know, there needs to be almost like a yin and yang of these two. Because the better you communicate, the better results you're going to get. The better results you
Mm-hmm.
get, the better you're going to be able to communicate. And it's just going to kind of continuously build on each other through time, right? And that, again, just keep kind of running down the list. Environments for success builds vulnerability. That vulnerability builds communication skills or allows us to communicate more efficiently, which then leads us to be able to coach for results, right? And if you even just do those four things without anything else, right, that's going to be a great way to build in buy-in from a client. And they're going to say, wow, not only do I feel safe, I'm able to communicate, and he or she listens, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when they do listen, it's not just, oh wow, that's hard, or oh that's it's like, okay, I hear you. Let's do this instead, right? Or I really appreciate you telling me that you only have 45 minutes to work out a day. Let's try to do it in 40 minutes and give you 5 minutes to just relax at the end of it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's actually building in those things into the program that make it truly individualized, right? And I think when we look at it, a lot of times these assessments and these conversations and the programs, they essentially become like almost just things to do, and no one actually uses them, right? Like people have assessments and programs. I used to do this or see this all the time when I was in Florida. There was a couple coaches that I would work with, and they would do assessments, and then you'd never like really ever hear about the assessment ever again. And it's just kind of like, so why are we doing this? Like you're better
Mm-hmm.
off just not doing it, because it's almost just like a fake, like, oh, we're going to use this to see where you move and how you go, blah blah blah, and this and that. And it's like, okay, well, how do you know if you're actually getting better? And this is something that even I've been working on tremendously throughout the last couple of years, is trying to figure out like, okay, what are the things that I need to implement inside of a program to know I'm making progress,
Mm.
right? And it's hard because sometimes you just kind of get lost in the training and you just go. And when you kind of work with people who don't necessarily have like big goals, like it's different. And I really had to start working on this when I started working with athletes because again, like for example, when I worked most recently with Ian, there would be times where he would have fights and then he wouldn't train for like a month after the fight. He would take like a month off. And it's like inside of that month, he didn't do much, right? So it's like, okay, where are we? Where were we? And how do we kind of like get back to that point, right? So he's ready to have a fight camp and whenever he needs to, or he's just ready to be ready when he gets called. And I
Mm.
think that it's really important to have that understanding of like if we need to know where we're at and we need to have an assessment for that, we need to use the initial assessment, right? We need to continuously use that and say, okay, you initially mentioned that you were running low on time and you felt like you didn't have control of when you worked out. And 6 months later, if you go through and they're still feeling that, something's not right.
Mm.
Like you did not do what you said you were going to do, right? If you go back and now they're saying, "No, I have way more control over my time. I'm feeling like I'm getting my workouts in, I'm enjoying it and blah blah blah, whatever else, that they find success. You're doing your job, right? It's just about how we actually, build that into the program. But that type of stuff builds buy-in, right? If you can go through a program for 3 months and then go and see, wow, look at all the things that I did improve, right? But and again, it doesn't have to be numbers, it doesn't have to be metrics, it doesn't have to be these like insanely detailed things. It just has to be stuff that you can measure consistently throughout time, right?
Mm.
It could be literally like, how happy are you when you're waking up on a scale of 1 to 10? You
Yeah.
know, how do you
How
feel when you
comfortable are you in your clothing? Yeah.
literally, I just
Literally,
said.
milady.
What are the metrics that you want to use? And again, it can be a back squat, it could be like a bike time, it could be a mile time, but it literally could very well be like Jerry just said, how comfortable do you feel in your clothes? How comfortable do you feel when you go out in public? When you are in the gym, are you able to could you name 10 pieces of equipment? Like that's something that's like would be huge for some people. It's like, hey, could you go into the gym and point out to any of the equipment and you could get, 7 out of 10 right. Like that's learning, right? And that's progress and that's showing that you're getting some type of result. It just depends realistically on what the result that you actually want is. Some people want to learn, some people want to lose weight, some people want to get faster, some people want to get stronger. And that's what that's for, right? And that's what coaching for results is. And it's really kind of taking the information you're getting and then building out a real plan for somebody to then take what you do it or orchestrate it or execute and get what they need. Anything to
Yeah,
add to that?
diving. I was gonna say we talked about the BG Perform system last podcast and having the build, sustain, influence, and the idea of consistency, how it fell into each one, but same idea. Like your results will differ depending on where you are. Like if you're in build, you might just be like, yeah, my clothes are fitting great. Sustain, it might be that too, but you also might be looking at the time that you have. Are you happier when you wake up in the morning? Are you feeling recovered? Whereas in the influence would be like, oh, my times are getting better. And so like all the results that you're training for, it again goes back to like kind of where you fall in that system. And it's important to keep all these things in mind. And then when you start to hit your goals and you find new goals, you may be shifting between build, sustain, or influence and kind of finding yourself in a different area. But no matter what, your training will always, or your results will always reflect on what type of training you're getting, and vice versa. Like
Yeah.
if you're training to get your results, you're gonna get there. And if you're putting in all the effort outside of the gym, in the gym, you're gonna get there. So just want to add that.
Yeah, I think like even if we look at the system, right? We look at build, sustain, influence. Like I actually I'm happy you brought that up. I think part of the reason why we designed this and we wanted to create the system was because it literally like it shows someone where they're at, right? And it's not
Mm-hmm.
a bad thing. Like again, I think we talked about this in the initial podcast. Like if you're in build and you stay in build, that's great. It's just to give you an idea of like what are some of the goals, like realistically, what are some of the goals that you need to graduate to that next level if you so choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to have autonomy. You want to understand how to work out effectively. You want to be able to consistently work out. You want to show intentional intentionality inside of those sessions. You want to be able to communicate, what you want and where you want to go effectively, right? And those types of things in build are what, we build that into a program. We build it so there's progression in the beginning that isn't too much, so you can show up to the gym every single day and build a habit, right?
Mhm.
And it's not so much that you're not getting, or it's not too little that you're not getting results. It's enough that it's pushing the boundary for you just a bit, that you're feeling that growth, but you're able to come back and do it the next day and the next day and the next day and the next day, right? Because early on, and like we can talk about this in any, you know, domain we want to. If you're trying to get better at something, you got to do it every day,
Yeah.
right? Like, think about any time you know, practice, and even like when I remember when you were skateboarding, you were out there every day when you were like learning how to
Yeah.
skateboard. Even like your
Learn how to
most recent
ollie.
one was a motorcycle, right? Like the
Yeah.
motorcycle is one where it's like you got to get on it. You got to get
Hmm.
time on it. You got to like you can't do it once a week and then be like, "Oh, well, I guess I'm just not good at it." Like
Yeah.
that's my favorite that I hear is like it's like jujitsu, right? And I'll explain it like in jujitsu. It's like when I go more than twice a week, I feel like I'm making great progress. When I go once a week and I get fucking smashed, and I'm like, damn, I suck. And it's like, no, I just haven't been. I haven't trained. Like, I
Yeah.
don't, it's just like I need to be there more. But early on in the process, you need to be there to learn. You need to be there to absorb the information, take it, and then build it in a way that works for you moving forward. Does that make
Exactly.
sense?
Hashtag time in. That's what it is.
Patience. Patience. That's what we need.
That's patience is a virtue. My nephew used to, when he was a baby, he would be like, "Patience hurts you." Because people would say patience is a virtue, and he didn't know how to say it. Patience hurts you. But this, in this case, patience does not hurt you.
It
It
does
helps
not
you.
hurt you. Anything to add to that?
No, that was perfect. I love it.
All right, cool. There's a few things left. I think one of them is kind of in the same realm of what we've been talking about, and I think
Hmm.
it's developing real relationships and not transaction based relationships, right? And I think we have to do that with boundaries. I think that's a really important thing to kind of understand here. But we obviously want to build really good relationships with the people that we work with, and I think what happens sometimes it becomes very transactional to some people, and it ruins the experience because everyone knows you have to pay for the things that you want, right?
Hmm.
You have to pay for the services, but you don't have to make it feel so transactional in the service, right? Like I think there's some people who, and this kind of goes where you have to read what's in front of you. Like if you have difficult clients, if you have difficult people, or you are a difficult person, like as a client, right, you know who you are if you are, um, you know, those things can feel very transactional because if you're not easy to work with or you're working with people who are not easy to work with, sometimes you're just like, oh, I just do it for the money, and that shows. Like it really shows. And I think you even feel it before you're like, I'm just doing this for the money. And you go in with less of an attitude. You go in with less of an excitement to go into it, right? And
Hmm.
when you have those clients that you're like super excited to work with, it shows. You're like, yeah, like I love this session. I love, when this person comes in because they're ready, their energy's high, they love the movements, they always give good feedback, and like you get excited for it, right?
Hmm.
And I think we have to do a really good job of developing relationships with the idea of like, hey, you are my client and you're not like in my life, right? They can be, and I'm really good friends with a lot of my clients, right? And I think it's just because of the time we spend together and the conversations we have, and you spend upwards of 3 to 4 hours with somebody a week, just straight up like one on one. You're gonna have conversations, right?
Hmm.
I think it's really important to be able to have those connections, right, outside of just like, hey, it's time to pay me, or hey, you owe me money, or hey, this is how much. Like having real conversations is what continues to keep them coming back. Learning, and what does that mean, right? Learning what they enjoy, not just asking, hey, what do you enjoy, but then being able to remember it and then
Hmm.
come back and say, how was your son's so and so? How was your daughter's fair? How was the thing you've been working on, the skill you've been learning? Like, how is that going, right?
Hmm.
And it's true intention, right? But it's true interest. It's not just like, yeah, so yeah, how was that thing? All right, you got 30. Like it's like you're actually having a conversation not just trying to pass time while you're having these conversations. And people feel that. And when they have real conversations and you actually learn about the individuals in front of you, they will continue to show up, right? Because I think if we look at what keeps people around in the fitness space, like in gyms in general, it's community. It's the people there that bring them there. It's like most of the time, if you go to some of these gyms, Orange Theories, Metabolics, things like that, the workouts aren't great, right? Like they're not the worst, but like they're definitely not the best. But what keeps you going back? Keeps you going back is there's 40 people waiting for you. If you don't show up,
And
you're
the
gonna get a
energy,
text.
yeah.
The energy, there's 50 people in a room, and they do a really good job of covering the workouts by having that energy involved, right? No one would do those workouts by themselves, if we're being
No.
honest, right? Like if you go look at any of those types of workouts, no one's doing that by themselves. They're doing it because there's 40 people in the room with them. And, we don't have to get into that conversation now, but it's just that drives people to continue to work, right? And in the setting that we're in, where it's more one-on-one, small group, or even group training, like that up to a certain level, it comes at the point of like, hey, someone cares about me, and if I don't show up, I'm letting you down, right? And if I don't show up as a trainer, I'm letting my client down, and that's a really important thing, and that goes outside the money, right? Obviously, the money matters because you pay your bills this way. This is your career. It's the only way you're able to continue to do what you do at a high level. But it doesn't have to be transactional. It doesn't have to be, all right, you didn't pay me this month, so like don't talk to me. It's like,
Yeah.
no, like, cool, what's going on? Can I help? And you have to help to a certain point, right? You can't have, and this is something I've always struggled with. I had this conversation today at the Coach Connect is like, I don't have, a family yet. So it's like, hey, if it's 8:30 at night and you text me, I'm probably going to answer, right? But I probably shouldn't. And that's a point where I have to stop and say, hey, it's past 7. You're not getting a hold of me until 6 a.m. the next morning, right?
My office hours start tomorrow.
Yeah. And it's like, it's not a bad thing. It's just like, I need to separate myself. You need to separate yourself. And we need to build something that's real, right? A real relationship that has a boundary because that takes away from your life outside of it, right? And I think that when you have those boundaries, it makes the relationship that much better and that much less transactional because it's just expectation. It's just like, hey, if I'm not working, just like because we don't have a normal job, we don't have a 9 to 5 office hour, we don't have that sort of thing. So it's like, hey, if I'm not quote unquote in my office, then you can't get a hold of me, right? But when I'm there, I'm going to give you my full 100% undivided attention. And that's a really important thing. And I think a lot of coaches give up that 100% undivided attention for the aspect of like, I'll be available whenever you need me. And that was how I was. And that's how I felt where I was going into these situations where I'm like, yeah, whenever you need me, message me. And then I'm getting messages and I'm doing something, or I'm getting messages and I'm out with friends and I'm like, okay, like I got to answer this. And it's like, no, like you're not even paying attention 100%. Like, why are you answering these messages? It's like, no, when the time comes, that's it. And that's why it's great to have a app like Coach RX that we use is because like now I can put everything there. If people want to message me, you message me on the app. When I open the app, I'll see it. I turn the notifications off on my phone. Shout out to my mentor, Sam. But and it's separating. It's separating yourself. It's just giving yourself an opportunity to step away, be away from it, and then when you come back through, be fully 100% focused, which again leads to better successful environments, more vulnerability because you're being a real human, right? Coaching for results because you're kind of showing them that there's boundaries and showing you that you're able to kind of keep these things. Just going through everything I said, communication, right? And influencing communication in a way that like when you get to communicate, it's going to be 100%, not 50% whenever, right? And that's it, right? And I think anything to add to that on your end?
No, that was good. I think like you said, just being upfront with people, because I was the same way. It's just like there are children in the house. If you heard them screaming, I promise they're not tied
You
up.
have children in your house?
You have children in your house? They're screaming to get out. Um, but it's just being upfront. It's going with the whole genuine thing in the beginning. Like I was the same way, where it's like if you need me, I'm there, and I would answer texts super late at night. But I tell people like during the consultation, like text me, I'll get to it as soon as I can. On the weekends, I check it during these hours, and then I also let them know like there's a chance I'll be in bed by 8 o'clock. So if you text me and I don't answer, I'll get to you the next morning, like that type of thing. I give them like an understanding of when I will not answer. So if they text me and they'll know like, hey, you probably won't see this, but just a heads up, and then they'll let me know. So
Yeah. And I think
same
I think
idea.
one of the other things too is like you said, expectations are so important early on for buy-in because there's nothing worse than like signing up for a product or a service and then having hearing one thing and then getting another,
Mm-hmm.
right? That would create the opposite of buy-in. That would just piss most of the people off that are in front of you. So
Right.
it's really important if you're going to communicate and you know you're going to have hours that you're going to communicate or you know that you're going to communicate in a certain way, just tell them.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't agree with it, that's fine. And just let them like and it's hard, but like you got to let them go if they're not going to fit that mold. If they're looking for somebody to hold their hand and that's not you, that's
Mm-hmm.
not you. There's nothing else you can really do, you know? And I've been way better about this. I'm saying this with the fact that probably 2 years ago I would have been listening to this. I needed to hear this information. Really, is where I'm coming from,
Yeah.
and that's it. But yeah, and I think the last two from for building buy-in, and these are more like metrics of success for yourself. Is like you'll know if you're building buy-in if you're getting referrals, right? If
Mm-hmm.
people are sending you people, if people are hearing your name and they're like, "Oh, this looks really cool. This guy looks really good. I've heard a lot of good things about you. I've seen your stuff, that type of thing." You're probably doing a great job, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a really good thing. And I think that, referrals are important, and this is something I personally am trying to work on now and being more diligent about and like more forward about is like ask people if they know people. Everybody knows people, right? And it's just, do you know one person that can help? Do you know one person that can get sent to me, right? The best is when they're just sending people, because when you do your best with a client, they're a product of your work and they show what you're capable of. So they go out
Yeah.
into the world, they show the people what are around you, and people are going to say, hey, you look great. Who do you work with? So and so. Boom. That's how it works, right? And you build up credibility and you build up buy-in. And then the last piece is just a history of results and just tenure. If you're doing this long enough at a high enough level, you're going to be successful, right?
Mm-hmm.
People are going to find you, they're going to know what you do, and they're going to ask for your services. But you have to be willing to kind of hold your breath to a certain extent for as long as you can and maintain it for as long as you can to build up that you know what do you call it? I guess just literally tenure. Like just build up that time so people know who you are, and they're gonna like if you do this long enough, you're gonna have enough people, testimonials, enough clients, enough case studies that it's gonna be impossible to say you don't know what you're doing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, it really becomes simple of like, hey, this guy can get me where I want to get to. That's who I'm gonna choose, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, anything to add to those?
No, that's good.
So I think really that's all I had for this. I think really
Oh,
kind of
I did
what?
have one more thing.
Oh, great! Should have saved it for the very end. I'm joking.
So the last thing is just to reiterate that all the things we went over build upon the last thing. It
Yeah.
all starts with the base. Like you said, if you're doing an assessment and you never visit that assessment, what's the point of doing it? The
Hmm.
assessment is the baseline. You set everything, you set your priorities, their priorities, you set expectations. Again, you go through and you build that vulnerability, which builds communication, which builds the opportunity for a relationship, which builds results, and
Hmm.
that relationship and results creating more referrals and just allowing you to continue to be the best coach you could be, allowing them to be the best client and help you help other people. So again, it's just building upon the very foundation of how to start with people and just being genuine.
Yeah, and I think even like you've had people, we had this conversation recently. I know there's been a couple clients, and I've had a couple clients too. Like
Mm-hmm.
recently, I had a client who, you know, was someone who, and this was a different case, but like when they were with me, they're 100%, like they're on it. The workouts are
Mm-hmm.
great, but then once they leave, it's like radio silence, or they don't get anything done, or work gets in the way, or this, that, and the third, and then it's like how are you supposed to build success inside of a program if you're not allowing yourself to fully buy in, first off, and,
Mm-hmm.
and second, how are you supposed to build buy-in when at the end of the day, you're not actually allowing yourself, a chance to see what it can do, right?
Yeah.
Like how can you actually say a program does or doesn't work when realistically you haven't given it its fair share, you know?
Yeah.
And I think you mentally have to buy in as much as physically have to buy in. Because I remember you and I were having a conversation a couple weeks ago where it was, you had a client who just was not showing up. And like
They
that's the
just
worst.
fell off
It's
the
like,
face of the earth.
and that's
Yeah.
it. And like you don't what do you do in that case? You put your foot down and you say, hey, listen, like this is not what I'm looking for in a client, or this is what I'm looking for in a client, and you're not fitting the bill. And it's like, how do we make this work? Right?
Hmm.
And I think it's really important for us as clients or as coaches to be able to, show when we don't want a client because again, like just as I mentioned, those types of people are now your work essentially,
Hmm.
right? When someone doesn't show up and they don't look great or they don't whatever, they're injured and they're just not doing the things that they need to be doing, and it's like, oh, okay, like what are you doing? They're like, oh, I'm working out with Jerry. It's like,
I guess I shouldn't do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
like damn, okay, well I guess I'm gonna go the opposite way of that.
Yeah. Right.
And you
I'm
have to
gonna
be
run fast as hell.
and you have to be willing to kind of like let those people go or give them the tools that they need to have to fix things
Hmm.
and then let them go if they're still not willing to fix it. So um,
Boundaries.
yeah. Anything on top of that?
No, that was my last thing,
I'm
Brandon.
joking. You can say whatever you want.
I'm
I'll give you
joking.
the mic.
I'm joking.
It's
Give
freestyle.
it.
Freestyle.
What? Freestyle?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Easy. Go to cut it.
Did you ever listen to the Fat Boys back in the day?
Easy. No.
Years ago, they tried to. No, they just had a very specific way of beatboxing. It sounded like they were choking on pizza. It's funny. They'd be like, you, listen to it. You know, if you know Fat Boys, you know Fat Boys.
All right. I'll have to check it
So,
out.
yeah.
But I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Today we talked
Hmm.
about building buy-in for your clients as a coach and really as a client, like what are some ways that you can find, you know, buy-in in your day or in your sessions, and even in your day, really,
Hmm.
like how can you build buy-in on a daily basis in whatever it is that you do? And these are some of the things that I believe lead to high levels of success in anything that you do. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time.
Peace.
Peace.
Oh, shit.